All right, much requested topic. Is it better to pay with cash or cards? And much like many of these personal finance questions, the answer is it depends. Better for whom and in what circumstances and with what financial situation? This is, should I pay off my mortgage early? Well, it depends. What are you trying to achieve? What's important to you? What are the biggest concerns? Let's start by talking about some of the advantages and disadvantages to cash and cards, and then we will kind of take a zoom out. So, what are the advantages of paying with a credit card? If you lose the card, you cancel it. Okay. If you lose cash, you've lost the money, right? You don't really lose any money if you lose a credit card or a debit card, and we'll talk about the difference between credit and debit a little bit later. Storage is another advantage. The more cash you have, the more space it takes up. With a card, you just have a card. That's it. Convenience. You don't have to replenish the card the way that you have to replenish cash as you use it. It doesn't run out in the same way. You don't fold it up. You don't deal with change. So there's a physical convenience to using cards as well. Fraud protection. If you get defrauded with cash, it's basically gone. I mean, you can file a police report, but essentially the money is gone. With cards, there are significant shields from financial liability. If you're scammed, you might only be responsible for a certain number of dollars for unauthorized purchases made on your cards, etc. There can be what we might call, I guess we'll call it like extra protection in many cases when using cards. So this can include car rental insurance. An important thing to know is whether your card provides primary rental car insurance or secondary. Sometimes there are credit cards that will double the manufacturer warranty on a product. Important to look at what are all the things that might come with your credit card. Rewards can be a really big deal, and rewards can include, miles, cash back, points, and all sorts of things. They have a value, so sometimes people don't know how do I think about those things. Well, there's a specific value. Miles might be worth 1.4 cents each if they are American Airlines miles, for example. The cash is just worth what the cash is, etc. Couple other things. I mean, I don't know how much of a big deal this is to people, but there is a sort of sanitary element to you just have your credit card and it's yours. In Europe, usually the wait staff don't even touch the credit card. They just bring you a thing. In the US, it's more common that wait staff touch the credit card, but instead of just money that's floating all around, touched by so many people, it's dirty. You have that. And then for me, another advantage is I call it the kind of accounting. Man, my handwriting it's getting worse and worse during the segment. Accounting. Look at that. Jeez, what a disaster. My first grade teacher would be disgusted. For me, at the end of the month, because I essentially don't use cash, I can just look through my statement, categorize all my spending very easily. Whereas if you're using cash, you have to have some other mechanism other than that credit card statement to remember exactly what you spent the cash on. Okay, let's now talk about the benefits of cash. So one benefit of cash is versatility. What do I mean by versatility? Well, generally speaking, cash is accepted at way more places than cards. Now, this has been changing. I do think that this is a benefit that is diminishing over time with cash. It's often the easiest transaction method. You can avoid convenience fees, right? No so-called convenience fees. Now, there's a question about a convenience fee would be you go to a place and they say, we add 59 cents if you use a card. That's in many cases not actually allowed by the credit card companies. There are, depending on the agreements that merchants have with credit card companies, they are not allowed to add a fee for using the card. It's a disincentive. They'd rather have cash, and there's different reasons why they might rather have cash, and it doesn't really matter for the purposes of this. So as it has become more well known that the credit card companies don't actually allow merchants to add a fee in many cases, instead, some merchants will offer a cash discount. It's really the same thing, which is it can sometimes be a little bit cheaper to pay with cash up front. Now, remember, the rewards have value. So imagine that you save 1% by using cash, but you forego 1% cash back. It's sort of even, right? No interest. So with credit cards, after the first month, you start accruing interest. With cash, there's never going to be interest. You also cannot deficit spend. In other words, with a credit card, if you have a $10,000 limit on a card, but only $2,000 in the bank, you can actually spend $8,000 more than you have. You can't do that with cash. There is what do I want to call this? I guess I would call it like the psychological spend feeling. There are some studies that find that when you are physically doling out cash, you viscerally connect to the expense. It feels much more real than using a card. And that some studies have found that people spend less in those situations. And that is arguably an advantage to cash. Okay, so these are some of the advantages of either of them. And of course, the disadvantages are just the counterpoints to these. What about changes that are happening right now? Well, one of the things we've seen particularly during and after the COVID pandemic is that there are more and more places saying no to cash and going card only. So that's a change. Another convenience with card is you can use Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatever with your phone, and then you can eliminate even needing the card itself. There is increasingly a preference for card at more and more merchants. So those are things to consider. I'm a card guy. And for me, the biggest reasons are, man, it's actually a lot of these. It's definitely the accounting. It's much easier for me to track and categorize my spending. If I lose it, it's a much simpler process than losing cash. The fraud protection has been very important, and the rewards as well. I've had many free trips because of those reward points. To personal preference, many different considerations. These are some of the major ones.